Welcome back. You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages of the newspapers as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with political correspondent for The Spectator, James Heal, and political journalist Alicia Fitzgerald. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. Well, the Sunday People leads with reports that US bombers have been positioned within striking distance from Iran. The Observer, also leading with the conflict, is using the headline "Closing In" alongside a picture of Iran's supreme leader. The Sunday Telegraph reports that a British man has been arrested on suspicion of spying on an RAF base in Cyprus for Iran. The Mail leads with the Tory party calling on British business leaders to stand up to the Chancellor's new labour laws. The Sunday Times reports on the Health Secretary's warning that there's no budget for the introduction of assisted dying laws. The Sunday Express says the Home Office is still owed £50 million from firms which shelter thousands of asylum seekers. The Sunday Mirror highlights Prince William's 43rd birthday with a closer look at his campaign to improve the Earth's climate. And on The Star on Sunday, EastEnders actor Danny Dyer says he's seen video proof of aliens from outer space. I'm not sure we'll be discussing that story tonight. You have to buy the paper. We're joined, as you can see, by James Heal and Alicia Fitzgerald. Welcome to you both. Let us start with the Observer, and a very striking front page. We've got there of the Supreme Leader with the headline "Closing In." How should we interpret that, James?
Well, a few things to this story today. Obviously, the continued Israeli bombardment has carried on. More than 20 senior Iranian leaders have now been killed. And we are expecting, of course, some clarity on what America is going to do in all of this. The two developments today are, we understand that Donald Trump will shortly be giving an update on American plans in the region, but also B-2 bombers have been sent to Guam. There was some speculation that they would go to the Chagos Islands, to Diego Garcia, the military base there. The fact they've been sent to Guam, which is 9,500 ways, has taken some people by surprise, but suggests perhaps that the UK involvement in all this will be less than previously thought. And really, it all comes down to, will the US actually strike the main nuclear base in Iran or not? Hence why the headline, of course, closing in.
Will this be read as a threat, that this type of headline, by Iran, do you think, Alicia?
Well, I mean, I can't imagine they're reading The Observer in Iran at the moment, but I mean, you obviously never know. I mean, I think what James was saying is absolutely correct in that the movements from Donald Trump and from America today definitely show that he's a lot more serious than maybe we presumed he was earlier this week. Of course, Keir Starmer initially absolutely adamant that Trump's threats on Truth Social were nothing more than just that. And then clearly, as the week progressed, that seemed to change, and Keir Starmer having to prepare for every eventual likelihood, really, and have all sorts of contingency plans. So I think basically no one can really be certain what America's movements will be, but also no one can really be certain what's going to develop in the current conflict as it unfolds. It's moving so quickly, and as we're seeing, the developments are happening hour by hour. It's not even day by day. So I think everyone is just kind of ready and alert. The UK very much hoping that it doesn't speed up, and also very much hoping that Donald Trump doesn't actually strike, because that speeds up the process at which they do have to react in some kind of way, shape or form.
And the deployment of these B-2 bombers, it's the largest US Air Force involvement since 2003 and the invasion of Iraq. You've obviously had the president returning to Washington earlier. There have also been nuclear ship movements as well. So it does seem there's lots of moving parts going on, and that after some of the rhetoric we saw on Thursday with that infamous message, I think it was on Wednesday, sorry, which was unconditional surrender by Donald Trump, actually the sort of calm before the storm does suggest that something significant could be about to happen soon.
And we're just getting some latest picture in of President Trump landing at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland. He's on his way to the White House. We're hoping to hear from him before he goes into this security briefing. Very unusual for him to be at the White House at the weekend at all. So very, very, very significant. So he'll be meeting with National Security Team, and we shall see. He has given that 2-week deadline, though, hasn't he, Alicia?
He has, and I think that is really proving the diplomatic challenge globally, is dealing with Trump and his unpredictability. Of course, it was 1 minute we're going to strike Iran, the next it kind of seemed that was called off a little bit, slightly retracted, a bit of a cooling period and time to think. And now, obviously, the advancements today of the bombers actually flying towards that region has definitely alerted people and made people think that maybe actually Trump is ready to strike sooner than the 2-week period is up. And I think this really is just proving just how unpredictable the US and the White House is under Trump's power, of course, and that no one really knows what to expect. But clearly there are so many risks that need to be considered before any military involvement does actually take place. Of course, it's happened in the past. We've seen it with Iraq, Syria, Libya, various countries where the West has intervened with military action, and actually it's caused more instability in the future in a lot of these cases. So many things to consider, and also just the kind of presence of the US and the UK, if we do, for whatever reason, get involved. Where that places us on the global stage diplomatically, how we are perceived by other countries is also really important here too.
And just to say, I think also, the fact that we're not really involving Diego Garcia by the early signs of it does suggest that once again we're going to see a continuation of what we saw earlier this week at the G7, which is that all eyes of the world are on Donald Trump. He will be the man, the great Roman emperor, to sort of give the thumbs up or thumbs down on this one, just like the reports last week that he was the one who decided not to go for the Ayatollah in terms of Iran's leadership. Maybe that will be changed this time, and maybe he'll actually go forward with military action to finally topple the head of the Iranian regime.
What's your instinct?
I think there'll probably be something involved, yeah. I mean, if you look at all the signs, the fact that there's so much troop movement, etc., the key question, of course, is whether it's going to purely be about getting rid of the nuclear capabilities of the regime or actually going for regime change. I think the indications are, given the potential ramifications taking out the Ayatollah, who apparently, according to some reports, has identified 3 possible successors if he was decapitated. I think there are too many risks for that. Perhaps the safer option would be to try and get the Israelis to get some sort of deal on nuclear capabilities and then claim the deal, take a deal. He wants a deal. He's someone who isn't particularly warmongering himself, but also he is very aware of the US responsibilities in that region.
I think the UK is obviously really urging conversation and de-escalation. That's very much the UK and Europe's stance on this. They want Iran and the US to communicate better so that this military involvement doesn't have to escalate. However, I think time and time again, Iran and Israel have proven that that's not really the way in which they want to operate. So it's proving more and more difficult. And I think the longer that this carries on, the more likely it is that military action from the West will go ahead.
And the B-2 stealth bomber, of course, is the only plane in the US Armory that can drop the so-called bunker bust that will be able to hit all the regime which are in the most secure nuclear factory, which are those the ones who are in that big defence base. And so that's why the B-2 bomber is so important in this whole conflict.
But in all of this, we must remember that President Trump has said that he doesn't want to start any wars. You know, there's all of this gossip and speculation that he wants to go for the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yes.
I mean, this is not really what he's set out his stall to do.
Hence why I say I think that he wants a deal of some kind. And you can go for a strike, which actually doesn't go for the full, let's take out the whole regime, let's go for the nuclear capabilities, stop at that, then claim victory. Or else I hope the Israelis do the US dirty work. And as Merz, the German Chancellor, said earlier this week, you know, Israel is performing what a lot of Western countries want to see, which is Iran having its nuclear capabilities stripped back for the next couple of years or so, delaying Iran's progress towards the bomb. And I think Donald Trump, in his classic usual way, wants to make a deal of some kind, but he's happy to do it with a bit of force or not remains to be seen.
OK, well, Donald Trump there, just at the top of the steps, disembarking there.
The MAGA cap on.
So this is Joint Base Andrews in Maryland, where he will be heading from on a journey to the White House, where we're hoping to hear from him as he makes his way into a security briefing. As is his wont, we're hoping that he perhaps talks to reporters and we get a few nuggets from him, although we know he has set that 2-week deadline as to when he will decide whether he will become involved in the conflict with Iran, between Israel and Iran. But known for his unpredictability, he could well be telling us something completely different this evening.
There was a fascinating report that suggested, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, that Trump wants to wait until the weekend when the stock market was closed for any military action so as to not spook the markets. So hence why all this expectation last night and why some thought perhaps that the B-2 bombers going today was linked to that. But of course, all this delay, this wait, will narrow supposed into opportunity if that was to be the case.
Interesting, though, that the markets factor into any decision.
I mean, very much he's concerned about his base. And there's been polling out suggesting that the American right is split about 55% against any military action on this, and he knows how fragile that Make America Great Again, that MAGA coalition is.
OK, well, he's boarded the helicopter on his way to the White House. We shall leave it there, James and Alicia, for the moment. Thank you very much. Let's take a break.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling. War, unrest, revolutions.
It's not his country, it's ours.
They have succeeded for the first time in their country's history in removing a leader from power. No freedom! Sky News, the full story first. There was fighting here, but there's clearly now a lull, and they're using it to bring up more ammunition. This is a mass exodus in which Russia is hemorrhaging some of its brightest and its best. According to the local weather channel, there have been more than 2,500 lightning strikes and flash flooding, all on top of this week's lethal tornado. What stays with you most in this job is some of the people you meet. What is your worst fear about what the Russians want to do to the children?
They're just boosting demographics by stealing young people.
Would you like to take the opportunity, Mr. President, on Sky News to invite Barack Obama to come here? Mr. Trump, are you running for president? Can you confirm it?
We're going to take a look, a very serious look.
On that day, we saw your fighters killing women, killing children. Was that a mistake? Did you go too far? You couldn't control your fighters? The full force of the state is being used to crush any protest. Free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in. Another alarm. The mood here is jittery and nervous. We're seeing the world get more and more divided, and it's our job to try to make sense of it all.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force.
It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Turkey is burying its dead.
Whole families died in this collapse. Generations wiped out. I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
Anyone could say, I'll do that, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. Still with me, the political correspondent for The Spectator, James Heal, and political journalist Alicia Fitzgerald. Let us take a look in this section, first of all, at the Sunday Times. And this story regarding, Wes Streeting, who is saying that the NHS doesn't have any money to pay for an assisted dying bill. That's his claim.
Yes, I mean, this was a long Facebook status he put on his page yesterday. It splashes the Sunday Times, one of the most influential Sunday newspapers, in number 10. And I think this will be taken pretty personally by some of the people in government because, of course, we've already had Keir Starmer issue a warning to the Cabinet about the government's official neutral stance on all of this. We had the former Cabinet Secretary, Nigel Case, writing to ministers about it. And the fact that Wes Streeting has posted this way, saying that MPs have made a mistake on it, saying that there's no cash in the budget for this, I think this will set a few hairs running in Number 10 about this, because Wes Streeting has been very vocal about this. He was the first cabinet minister to come out against the bill, and I think that this is quite a marked statement by him in such a public manner on his personal Facebook page.
Quote here, several cabinet ministers are thought to feel the same.
Well, of course, yesterday, this is all off the back of that landmark vote yesterday where MPs in the Commons voted in favour of legalising assisted dying. Of course, it still has various hurdles to cross until it actually would become law, but nonetheless, a very momentous day in Parliament for sure. And the crucial thing, obviously, was that this was a free vote, meaning that no particular party were instructed to vote in a particular way. So you could purely place your vote based on conscience, your own decision, or whatever your constituents had expressed to you mattered to them the most, which is what happened. And why Wes Streeting feels so strongly about this, I suppose, of course, he is the Health Secretary, probably the most important person in Parliament when it comes to issues like these. And he voted against this bill. He was one of the few cabinet ministers who did. And now very much pressuring the rest of the backbencher MPs to do the same and to rethink their decision. I mean, yesterday's debate was a really interesting one. It was very passionate, it was emotional, it was heated. And I think when you get these free vote opportunities, you really kind of feel a lot more. You get to hear a lot more emotion from MPs. And I think it was really impactful, but so much concern still about the wording of the bill, about how it will be implemented. And as this article states, the cost of it, it says it will cost £15,000 per death for the taxpayer. So a cost that Wes Streeting says we simply cannot foot at a time like this, although obviously on the flip side, the argument is that keeping someone who is terminally ill alive requires an awful lot of treatment and an awful lot of caring facilities as well. So it will be interesting to see a comparison of the cost of an assisted death versus the cost for the palliative care that they'd need for a longer period of time.
Equally, of course, I'm not sure we can really do a cost-benefit analysis of, you know, in terms of the arguments on it. But I do think that's the key point here. Wes Streeting was the big winner from the comprehensive spending review last week. 30 billion, he got an extra for that for the NHS. And he's now sending a message which is that, look, the NHS is key for Labour's re-election. This is going to hurt the NHS. Labour peers in the House of Lords are going to look at this, and they're pretty divided on this. And I think this will be something that really irritates some of those 10 cabinet ministers who voted yesterday for assisted dying.
Alicia, take us to the Sunday Telegraph, and we read that Nigel Farage is on course to be the next Prime Minister for the next election.
This is an interesting story, I will say. It's based on an Ipsos opinion poll, one of the most reliable or well-respected polling companies that often give out kind of cast election predictions long before the next election. I know it seems like we only had the last one about a day ago, and now talking about predictions for the next one kind of seems a bit fortuitous. But this is basically a poll that put Reform on 34%, which was 9 points ahead of Labour on 25%. I personally don't know whether we can take from this poll that means Nigel Farage is on course to be Prime Minister. I think what it does mean is that obviously Reform have this huge momentum at the moment, and their growth since prior to the election, or even since the election, has been exponential. And it seems that even though there are various issues within the party that seem to be, you know, very public and widely known, it doesn't seem to be deterring people or deterring the public's popularity from this, what was a really small and lesser known party, I suppose, in its current iteration. So I think that's what we can take from it. I'm not sure whether we can predict who will be the next Prime Minister after the next election. It is so far away, so many different things can happen. So I think, you know, if you're a Farage fan, don't get too happy yet, and if you're not, then don't panic, is my
James, you've got about 30 seconds. What do you take from the poll?
Well, I think it's mostly voter disgust and discontent with the two main old parties. This is the lowest Labour poll rating since October 2019 for Ipsos. This is the worst ever Conservative Ipsos polling, with 15%. That is wipeout territory. If that was put in a general election, big if, lots of caveats, as Alicia said, that would result in 6 seats. The one good thing about that for the Conservatives was they'd at least get short money, and they'd have more than Reform this time. But it shows basically how much the political system is in flux right now.
James and Alicia, thank you very much for the moment. Let's take a look at the weather for you now.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Well, fresher air is moving in from the west, triggering a few sharp showers and bringing an end to the heat wave. By early Sunday morning, Saturday's thunderstorms will have cleared, but further heavy downpours will move into parts of Ireland and Western Britain. It will be largely dry elsewhere. Brisk westerly winds will spread scattered showers further east through the day, but there will be plenty of sunny spells in between. For most, it will be a fresher feeling day, although southeast England will remain hot and humid after another muggy night. The showers will be heaviest and most frequent in the north and west.
Breathtaking views with clear skies ahead. Qatar Airways sponsors the weather.
Coming up next on Sky News at 11, Donald Trump heads to the White House as he weighs up whether or not to strike Iranian nuclear facilities. We'll have all the very latest.